If you're one of the 2.6 million people that saw our recent viral video about sealing this pond, welcome to our YouTube channel. Our channel is not just about this pond, so we'd like to introduce ourselves and tell you what else is going on, and then we're going to address some of the questions, comments, and other things that we saw in the comment section of those videos. Piney Grove started about 5 years ago when my wife Deb and I decided that when we were going to enter that next phase of our life after we were done with corporate America, we were going to move from the coast of Florida inland to some country property. So when we bought Piney Grove 5 years ago, it all looked like that. You see those thick pines there in the background? That's what the whole 20 acres was covered with. The first thing we did is we cleared 5 acres of those pines out here in the front to create a pasture, and we also cleared an acre in the back of the property as a field for the future. Next, we had this road put in behind me and also underground electrical brought into the property so that we could start the process of building out the property. Our very first building on the property was this 40 by 55 building here behind me, and we refer to that as the mega shed. The next thing we did was build a pole barn, and then after the pole barn was built, we went ahead and enclosed part of it. This is the work in progress, and this is where our animals will be. But for right now, it's equipment storage and also a workshop here on the end. Piney Grove is going to be a multi-generational homestead, so we built this house behind me for my folks to live here. And then later on, we're going to build our house up there on the hill that I was standing on earlier. And we've done a bunch of other things like fence building, well drilling, and all the things that are necessary to take raw land and turn it into something that's livable. So be sure to check out our other videos. We've got about 200 videos that showcase that, and we also have about 100 shorts as well. And also consider subscribing. We love to have you along for the ride. But back to the main reason for this video, and that's the pond behind me. So let's start out at the beginning with why did we have to seal this pond? And the reason we had to seal this pond is the same reason that many people who dig a pond have to seal it, is that the soil is not exactly perfect. And by perfect, what you want on the bottom of your pond is about 12 inches or 18 inches of clay. And it's got to be the right type of clay, or else water will somehow find a way through the cracks, or it's a type of clay that maybe is a little bit porous. So what we have here is a pond that does not have any natural springs or any sort of water source except for runoff water. So we probably are bringing about 10 acres of land that slopes towards this pond to fill it up, but sometimes during periods of low rainfall, it gets low. And this year, we actually had sort of a drought earlier this spring, and the pond actually got down to about 1 foot deep, and we really need it to be 4 or 5 foot deep. We're going to go up to the mega shed and actually talk about the product that we applied on the pond. But the very first thing I'd like to address is there was a lot of comments of, oh great, now you've killed all the fish. Well, we actually didn't kill a single fish because there's no fish in this pond. We never stocked it, and there's no natural fish in it, so no fish were harmed in the making of that video. But the reason for sealing the pond is because we eventually want to stock it with fish. Another thing that came up a lot in the comments was, you are spreading toxic stuff on the land out here. You're ruining the environment. I'm going to report you and all those sorts of things. Rest assured that we wouldn't do anything to harm this land. This is something that's going to be in our family for generations, and the last thing we want to do is pollute our own water source. So we researched the product we use, which is called Damit, and then we also use a product called Seal, which is bentonite, which is natural clay. So back to Damit. Damit is actually a polymer, and I'm not a chemist and I'm not a biologist, so I'm not going to get into the atomic or molecular level of what it does. But basically, polymers are in your hair, they're in your fingernails, they're used to make plastic water bottles, they're used in the earbuds that you use in your iPhone, and they are non-toxic to the environment. So what this substance does, it's a powder that you spread on the surface of the water, and then it becomes like a slime or a sticky substance, and it sinks down to the bottom. And as it sinks down to the bottom, it collects any particles in the water, which is why we were throwing the bentonite on top of the surface as well, so that the Damit would grab the bentonite and also any other clay that's suspended in the water and take it down to the bottom. Now, I'm not a chemist or a scientist, so I can't talk about negatively or positively charged ions, but the way this works is that polymer and the particles that it catches as it falls through the water column are attracted to the bottom of the pond, and then the pressure of the water pushes all that into the cracks and crevices, and it creates a seal. It's a non-toxic seal to the bottom of the pond, and it should last 5 or more years. And naturally, a pond is always trying to seal itself with the sediments that wash in. So we're just trying to accelerate that process so we can bring the water level up and get some fish in the pond. I actually communicated with the owner of Shalex, and Shalex is an Australian company that makes the Damit product, and we actually talked about sealing this pond. And I also researched the safety data sheet for this product, and in review of that safety data sheet, there is nothing toxic about Damit that went down on this pond. Now the bentonite, which is a natural clay that comes from volcanic ash, and we actually don't have it naturally occurring here, we have to ship it in. The big problem with that when you're spreading it is that it's a dust, and if it gets in your lungs over prolonged periods, it could cause some harm. Now during that video, I had a buff over my face and I could have used maybe a dust mask, but again, it was only a short period of time that we were doing this pond, and that was a very frustrating day. What happened was we started on the north end of the pond and worked our way this way. We were trying to get both myself and Deb in the boat, and she would actually guide the boat and I would spread the product. But we found out that the boat was a little too small for both of us and the product. And then the wind picked up, started blowing us that way. So it was really hard to backpedal with the boat and apply the product. And it was just in general a frustrating day. So going back to the materials that we used to seal this pond, one of the comments was, if it's non-toxic, why are you wearing a biohazard suit? They were not biohazard suits. What they were painter suits. And this Damit product is very sticky. And if it gets on your clothes, it gets on your shoes, it gets on your skin, it's really, really hard to get off. There is something in the safety data sheet that says that it could be a mild irritant to your skin. So we try to protect our skin from that, but mainly just to keep that stuff off of us. Another comment we got a lot was, why didn't you do it right the first time? You've got to have clay in the bottom of your pond or else it's always going to leak. And that's a very valid point. And the problem is that this was a low area when we bought the property and it didn't have the right soil. We actually took the soil and used it to build out around the property, and to bring in the right type of clay, you're probably looking at about $50,000. Now that's a rough estimate, but you figure for every day that a big excavator is here on site and every day that a big bulldozer is here on site, that's $5,000 a day. And good clay is probably going to be $300 to $400 a load. This is about a 1/4 acre pond. And imagine if you're trying to bring in 12 inches or 18 inches of the right type of clay. This was already an expensive project to begin with. So we dug a pond where we thought the water would hold and hoped for the best. It didn't work out that way. And that's why we tried Damit to seal the pond, because that was a cheaper solution. So the next common question was, how much did it cost? And then a follow-up to that, did it work? Damit cost about $200 to $250 for a pail or a bucket. And oh, by the way, what's the difference? One of the comments was, that's a bucket, not a pail. I don't know the difference. Leave a comment below. What's the difference between a bucket and a pail? But anyway, it's about $200, $250 a pail or a bucket, and it covers about 1,500 or 1,600 square feet. So to treat this whole pond here, we bought about, I think, $2,100 worth of Damit, and we've used half of the product, which kind of leads into the second question, does it work? So from that white marker out there that we put, that PVC pipe, to that end of the pond has been treated, and we feel that's the sandiest portion of the pond. And it's been a year now. It was 1 year ago, almost to the week, that we applied Damit, and we think we've seen some slowing of the leaking, but we haven't treated from that pole to where I'm standing, and this corner of the pond is really sandy. So we're waiting for the water level to get up to about 6 feet. We recently had some good rains. We brought the water level up from 1 foot to almost 5 feet. It's dropped a little bit now. But when we get 6 feet or better, we'll have more water pressure, and then we'll treat this half of the pond. We've got the rest of the Damit sitting up in the mega shed, and we'll do a video on that when we do that as well. These are the two products that we use. This is the Damit that comes in the 5-gallon pail. And then this is what's called quick gel bentonite. This is actually a drilling type of bentonite. And Halliburton actually makes something called bend seal, and they also make something called hole plug, which are bigger pieces of bentonite clay, and is probably better suited for a pond application like we have here. But we are not a how-to channel, we're a how we do channel. We use this because it was readily available. But you've just got to make your own decisions out there what you want to use. This was not the primary way we were trying to seal the pond. The Damit is the product that we use to seal the pond, and this was just kind of an afterthought. But a lot of the comments alluded to the fact that you should use a respirator, and they are not wrong. You should use a respirator, and if using a respirator makes you feel safer, you definitely should use one. It was really hot the day we applied the product on the pond. We had rubber gloves on. We had to take them off because they were actually filling with sweat. But if you want to be 100% safe, yes, you should wear a respirator. You should wear gloves. You should cover all parts of your skin. So going forward, if we have to treat the pond, let's say in 5 years or so, we would use whole plug or something with bigger pieces of bentonite. On the other side of the table, we have the infamous biohazard suits. And as you can see, it's simply a paint suit, and it still has the residue of the Damit and the quick gel on here. And this is a year later, and I think if I were to wet this down, it would get sticky again. Now, we're not going to open up the contents of the Damit, but inside of here, it's sealed in a plastic bag, and we don't want any humidity getting in here and clumping it because we've already talked about the price of it, and we still have to seal half the pond. It's a granular substance, but it also has some fines in it, more dust type of substance. And when we showed Steven, the owner of the company, the video of where we applied this product, he said we might have lost a little bit of the effectiveness by the wind blowing off the finer particles. What you want is the thicker particles of the Damit and the finer particles to stay together. So it's best to use that little electric spreader that we had and go back and forth. But the environment and the wind conditions just got away from us, and we had to go to more of a throwing it method. He said it was effective. And he also said that although that wind, as you could see in that video, was blowing the bentonite powder to one side, he said most of this Damit, when it hits the water surface, it starts sinking right away. So we likely treated more of the pond than we thought we did because we thought that the Damit product was actually blowing to the north side of the pond. The comments and questions have been coming in fast and furious over the last week about this pond and the method that we used to seal it. Some of them were positive, some of them were negative, and some people were very, very concerned about my health. Well, it's a year later. I think one guy actually said, did anyone check on this guy? It's a year later. I have no health issues. I'm good to go. But we are not a how-to channel, we're a how we do channel, and this is the way we decided we were going to try and fix this pond. But we sure appreciate you guys stopping by and watching. If you would, please subscribe and you'll be able to get updates on not only the pond, but also the rest of the things that we're doing out here at Piney Grove. But that's going to do it for today's video, so y'all take care out there, and we'll catch you on the next video.